Guys, Mark Goldberg here from Mark Vlogs Watches with a quick word for your friend and mine, ArchieLuxury, Paul Pluta, AC3, Archibald Chesterfield III. You know, he invented the quick wristwatch check, and the rest of us on YouTube, well, we just stole it. Help keep Archie full-time on YouTube by liking this video, watching this video, tell your fuckhead friends, and make sure to subscribe to his Patreon. And now, ArchieLuxury.
Hey guys, Paul Pluta on the Paul Pluta channel, and today I'm doing a paid review. This is paid review JU18, and this is for Brit. And before I do that, let's do a wristwatch check. I'm wearing my two-tone Rolex Daytona, Maserati blue dial, gold through the clasp. I just love my Daytona. Okay, this was actually a phone call I had, which I decided to this is one of my airplanes, the engine fell off here. I decided to make this into a video because it was actually quite a interesting phone call. And it basically, this is a dilemma I think that a lot of people could have there. You might be a bit of a watch person yourself, and inevitably what will happen is you may have a friend of yours who owns a watch, and they want to sell it. So what is the best way to buy a watch from a friend which is fair to them and fair to you? So I'm making this video. In this case here, Britt said to me, "Hi Arch, I need some advice. My friend has the attached Rolex GMT Master for sale, reference 16750, serial number 95, okay, 9.5 million. He purchased the watch in 1992. The watch came with the original Pepsi red-blue bezel insert. What's a fair price for the watch with original bezel insert and the black bezel insert? He no longer has the box and papers. By the way, I plan to send the watch to Rolex New York for service and cleaning. I'm sending you." He sent me some money. Thanks, Brit. And this was quite an interesting question. There was I did a phone call with him, but I decided to make this video because it was an interesting question. How do you buy something from a friend without ripping the friend off and being fair to both parties concerned? And I said, look, the best way to do this, and this doesn't necessarily have to be a Rolex GMT. It applies to any watch for that matter. And this is how I would calculate it. Basically, you could jump on to Chrono 24 and have a look. So a 16750, that's a transitional type of GMT. It's when they had a quick set date function, but it had the plastic glass. It's a fairly hot watch now. Any of the GMT masters, they're very hot. 16750, 16750, and the later series, 16700, 16710s, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so it's a very, very in-demand watch. So the best way to price it fairly, I would say, would be to have a look. You could have a bit of a price guide on Chrono 24. Chrono 24, I find, is very useful for pricing. Okay. The thing about Chrono 24 is you've got to remember, Chrono 24 is not cheap. They charge quite a hefty premium to sell something. For a watch of that caliber, it'd probably be about $500. So, they want their very, very big cut to sell a watch, so to speak. Okay, so to this watch here, 9.5 million serial numbers. You're talking mid to late 80s. So it's lived a bit of life there. Okay. So how would you fairly buy that? And I've got to be honest with you, it is a bit of a minefield because there's a number of factors. What I would do is I'd start by having a look on Chrono24 and seeing what they go for. And ideally, it'd be good if you could probably find a 16750. That's quite a they're not that short of supply there, so they are a little bit plentiful. Yeah, they're out there. There is enough examples in the marketplace. I'd take a look at Chrono24, and you've got to assume with Chrono24, because of the high fees, somebody would be making the margins on vintage Rolexes is normally about 10 to 15%. Okay, I would probably say because of the high fee that Chrono24 charges, you could easily say that they're probably 15 to 20% is possibly what they're trying to sell the piece for, and they'll probably come down. They could possibly come down a bit. So you would have a look for one of those pieces there. The next thing is if a dealer is selling one, generally speaking, it would be in fair working order. So you would probably have this piece, and you'd work backwards and say, okay, well, the dealer is probably making 15 to 20%. Okay. You would then say, well, okay, what is a service cost for this? A service, I'd probably take it to an independent. I honestly think one of the worst things you could do with a watch of that caliber would be to send it to Rolex, because Rolex would be inclined to possibly change the hands. If they're tritium hands, they'd possibly change them for luminova, and there's a lot of things Rolex would do that may not please the collector. Believe you me, I would not be sending that to Rolex. It's like having a 70s Mercedes-Benz, like a W123, famous 230, 280 E-Class. You don't really take it to the dealer, you'd take that to a Mercedes specialist. And that's who I would get to service that piece. Servicing, generally speaking, if they doesn't have any corrosion or water type damage inside there, you're probably looking at about $300 to $600, between $300 and $600, $300 to $600. Okay, that's probably what you're looking at. If it's missing box and papers, the box isn't a big problem. They're usually about $100 to $150. Papers, look, papers, generally speaking, look, it can make a big difference for some vintage models. On that particular model, they're probably 10%. Now, the thing is, if you're looking at Chrono24, instead of subtracting for papers and that, then why don't you find one that doesn't have papers? Then you could just say, okay, that's approximately what this is. Cost factor in a service and any other faults there. The fact it's got the extra bezel, that is a nice thing. That's a nice thing. As providing they're both original, genuine Rolex, not aftermarket. Aftermarket bezel probably isn't worth terribly much at all. I would seriously say, look, if you were looking at selling, you could do it one or two ways. If you're going to buy it from a friend, you could say, look, they're selling for X number of dollars. So let's say, pluck a figure. Let's say they're selling for $10,000 US. The dealer's probably making 15%, say, so that makes it about 8.5. He's serviced it, 500, 8,000 wholesale. He's putting a box with it. It doesn't have a box, 8,000. So you'd say, well, the dealer's probably buying it for somewhere about 7 to 8,000. So you'd say, well, I'll pay you 8 for it. That's possibly a fair way of doing it. The other thing is you could say to him, well, you get a quote and I'll beat it. So he could go to a dealer and the dealer would say, look, I'll give you this. The danger in that, of course, is that he will take the dealer's offer and say, fuck, I don't really want to sell it to friends. Selling watches to friends is like selling a used car. It can be problematic. And the other problem is, what happens if you see your friend with it? It's going to piss you off that you sold it. Whereas if you sold it to an anonymous dealer, it's not going to annoy you every time your friend wears it. So there's a number of considerations there. But I generally speaking would say you can factor back, work backwards. And the other option is that he actually quoted me that he went to Bob's Watches. And I said, well, look, the thing with Bob's Watches, what they do is they get you to send the watch in, which you've automatically lost your power play. And Bob's Watches, he's as sharp as a razor blade. He knows valuable, very, very valuable stuff. And they'd basically give you a quote, they'd look at it, they could see whether the dial's been changed or this or that. Basically, the prices they pay, that's for a saleable condition watch, which is running and perfect. Obviously, if it hasn't been serviced in donkey's years, got a bit of stretch, needs a bit of a polish, this and that, it's obviously nowhere near the price they pay, because the price they pay is for a saleable example. So they're really able to really, I've got to be honest with you, the power play, once you've sent it to them, you really don't want them to send it back. You want your money. So I think that's kind of a, look, I'm not questioning their business practices, but yeah, let's just leave it at that there. So why do I think the fairest thing is? You know, it's, the other thing is you could say to him, look, it probably needs a service, it needs this. I'll pay this. If the service is bigger, help me a bit. That's another option you could throw out there. But I generally speaking, it's very tricky selling a watch to a friend, and you'd only really do it if it meant you got more money. So I mean, you know, it is a tricky thing there. The art of buying and selling things is quite complicated. I've been very good at it. One of my friends said I'm a cunt. I'm a cunt because I always make I try to make a profit, and fair enough. I have nice items, I present them nicely, and I want top price. I'm not a charity. I don't have charity tattooed on my forehead. So I gotta be honest with you there. I think in many ways you've got to do your own due diligence and homework. How to fairly buy a Rolex? It's a very interesting question, but I would say the cost back, the factor back, where you take off their margin and you take off the price of servicing and a few little factors like that. That's an okay way to work it out. The other thing is you could always pay me to get some photos and tell you what it's worth as a professional. That's another option you could do there. But generally speaking, just be careful. Dealing with friends and family is always fraught with danger, and sometimes it's best to avoid this situation. But I hope it helps, guys. I hope that gives you a bit of food for thought. I'm Paul Pluta. Remember, guys, like, subscribe, tell your friends, and don't forget that paid reviews keep me on YouTube full time. $50 for a paid review, and I will tell you what I think of your watches, your collection, your latest purchase. I'll tell you the truth, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm Paul Pluta. Tell me what you fuckers think of that.
Oh. Hey Archie Luxury fans, if you're into luxury, then you gotta be into 66 Buick Rivieras. Check out my son and I, Alex, as we restore this beautiful 66 Buick.
Neighbors are having a picnic, you know, having fun and stuff. Me, I'm doing cars. It's what I've done my whole life.
Hey guys, it's Paul Pluta. I'm the method actor who plays Archibald Chesterfield III. Guys, I want to have a quick talk to you. Do you need to sell a wristwatch? Do you want to sell a piece for reinvestment? Do you have too many watches? Well, guys, I'm here to tell you that my good friends at Sydney and Brisbane Vintage Watch Co. are looking for quality wristwatches for their store. Now, Ronnie has instructed me to tell you guys that he is paying more than other dealers. That's correct. He pays top prices for quality pieces. So guys, if you've got a Rolex you want to sell, or a Patek, or anything, you want to sell a wristwatch, give the guys at Vintage Sydney, it's Vintage Watch Co. Give them a call. That's right, guys. They're paying good prices. They've always been very, very fair to me. And I got to tell you, they are nice people to do business with. I'm just trying to find their card here. Where the hell did I put it? Look, ask for Ronnie in Brisbane, or Philip in Sydney. That's correct. They will look after you. Tell them Archie sent you. That's right. Tell them Archie sent you. They're paying top prices. That's correct. Brisbane and Sydney. Vintage Watch Co. Your premium place to sell watches. Tell me, guys, this is for you. Tell them Archie sent you, and they will give you extra keen pricing.